Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Align podcast. I hope you all are doing well. And if not, I hope this space gives you a little comfort, clarity, and even just something to reflect on today. I'm super excited about today's conversation because we are going to touch on something that doesn't always get the spotlight. But honestly, it deserves so much more love and attention. And I couldn't have asked for a better guest to guide us through this conversation than the incredible Tamara Cortoos. She's a psychologist and coach who is passionate about helping people navigate these transitions with purpose and power. She's also the founder of Midlife Crossroads Academy, where she helps people embrace midlife with grace and intention. Tamara, thank you so much for being here, and I'm so excited to have you on my show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ruhi. I'm fine. Thank you so much for the introduction. That was very kind of you. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast as well. I'm really excited to be here today.
Emotion is likewise. Let's get started in the conversation. So, Tamara, can you tell us what got you interested in working with people going through midlife?
Yes, of course. I guess my story might sound familiar to a lot of your listeners. Maybe a bit of background about me. I spent nearly 20 years building what looked like a successful life. I'm originally from Belgium. I live there again now. But I've lived in Barcelona. I lived a decade in London, another decade in Sydney. I built a great career, which I loved. I got married. I have two amazing kids. Traveled to some incredible places, and then I think I did all the things I was supposed to do to have this happy, fulfilled life as a grown up. But one day in my early 40s, I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. I was actually asking myself, my reflection in the mirror, like, who are you really? And I felt really lost. I felt really restless, like I'd taken somehow a wrong turn, even though I followed all the right steps in life. If there was ever a guide to life, I think I followed it pretty well. But looking in the mirror changed everything for me. It took me some time. But I started to realize that many of us hit a point in life where we start questioning everything. And that point is the start of a life phase that is called midlife. Um, and more importantly, I guess I realized that midlife doesn't need to be the crisis that everybody talks about. It's actually an incredible opportunity for change. So it's kind of the very brief version, like like the background, if you like, towards Midlife Crossroads Academy. Um, but yes, that's kind of who I am and how I got into the whole subject of midlife as well.
Well, that's such a powerful reason you have. And it's so amazing how your own journey has shaped how you want to support people during such pivotal phase of their life. And I'm sure so many people will resonate with what you just said. Moving on, a lot of people hear midlife and think of it as a crisis or a tough time, as you said just now. From your experience, what are some of the biggest myths or misunderstandings about midlife that you would like to clear?
Oh, there's a couple. um, there's the association with crisis, right? That's the biggest myth of all. As soon as you mention the word midlife, people's minds immediately jump to crisis. It's almost automatic. Um, when I first started Midlife Crossroads Academy, I reached out to someone that I really respect and asked for his help with, like, creating visibility for the brand and sharing my business with his network.
Mhm.
And he said to me, Tamara, I wish you all the best, but I can't be seen helping you because being associated with you might make people think I'm having a midlife crisis and that could hurt my business. He had a business too. So that's just an example to show you how deeply ingrained this association between midlife on the one hand and crisis on the other hand actually is. For some people, they're just one and the same. And that means for them that midlife is something to be embarrassed about. Uh, when you say midlife, they get these mental images of, the red sports car, dating someone half your age, dressing like you're 18 getting a
Mm-hmm.
tattoo or facelift and, doing something impulsive and dramatic. But midlife is not a crisis. Um, it's actually, maybe if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit more about crisis. The whole midlife crisis, the terminology of it, that comes
Mm-hmm.
from Canada. In 1965, there was a psychoanalyst called Elliot Jaques who he did a literature study. It was nothing more than that, with artists from the past, people like Michelangelo and Picasso.
Mm-hmm.
He looked at these men, about just over 100 of them. They were all in their late 30s to mid 40s. And he noticed that at that point in their career, their output went down. It reduced, and they started behaving a little bit differently to before. So he termed that as a crisis. And as often happens, that tiny little piece of research got blown way out of proportion. And suddenly, this whole idea of a midlife crisis being a biological certainty took off. And it sparked decades of research into midlife and this crisis that goes with it. But of course, I mean, it's the whole association is based on very little, right? It's such a flimsy relationship. But it's not just, you asked me about myths, so I don't want to digress too far. The midlife crisis is not the only challenge that you face in terms of myth. It's also that you're too old. People always often say that, like, once you're in midlife, you're too old to make new friends, too old to run a marathon, too old to start a new hobby, old to make any meaningful change in life. So that's a big myth as well. Or another one is you should settle and be happy with what you've got. Like there's
Absolutely.
nothing left to look forward to or to
Yeah.
achieve once you hit a certain age. Um, or my personal favorite, because it's actually one that I used to believe too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not embarrassed to say, but it's true. And that is that your best years are behind you. I now know that that is absolute rubbish, because your best years are the ones you choose to be great. Then there's the too late myth. Too late to change jobs, too late to change your career, too late to start a business, to chase your dreams. And whenever I hear a midlifer mention that to me, that, like, I can't change, it's too late, I always think, like, but says who? Who are these people who say that it's too late? Because, it's your life. These people are not living your life. You are living that. So surely it must be your decision if it's too late or not someone else. But, these myths, they only have power as long as you believe them. And once you realize that they're complete nonsense and you start challenging them in your mind, but also in your actions, they disappear. And that's what I keep telling people about midlife, right? It's not a crisis. It's not a decline. And it's not too late. So I guess those are the main myths of midlife.
I have always heard about midlife associated with crisis, but when you speak about the study, that's something new that I have learned. And I love that, thank you for bursting those myths. And it's so refreshing to hear midlife being framed in a more empowering and positive light. Thanks for that. So once people start seeing midlife differently, what do you think some of the ways they can embrace this phase and turn them into time of growth and new beginning and not look it as crisis?
Um, well, there's a couple of things. I'll maybe first take a step back again and zoom out a little bit to frame this. There's this another psychoanalyst. He was
Mm-hmm.
German. His name is Erik Erikson. He came up with the 8 stages of psychosocial development. So basically, what he did was he mapped out how we as people grow and change throughout life. And he says, okay, of these, within the 8 stages, each of them comes with a challenge that shapes who we become. And in midlife, the challenge is, are you growing and giving back, or are you stuck and disconnected? So you have a choice. He called it the choice between generativity and stagnation. Generativity is basically when you feel like a deep concern for other people. You want to make a meaningful impact. As if you're a parent you automatically have generativity in you already because you're raising children, you're making an impact in that way. But you can do it in many other ways. You can mentor younger colleagues, you can lead a team, you can create something beautiful or valuable for the world. You're using your skills, your experience to contribute, and that's fulfilling to you. So that's generativity, choosing to give something back. But on the other hand, there's stagnation as well. And that's when you have that stuck feeling where nothing excites you anymore. You're not growing, you're not making a difference. Maybe you're even feeling a little bit disconnected from the world. It's like it's like living on autopilot with no real sense of purpose. So you have to make that choice in midlife. Do you step up and share what you've learned, what you know, or do you retreat into yourself and let life pass you by? Now, of course, being a coach, having Midlife Crossroads Academy as my business, of course, I encourage people to choose generativity. That's basically most of the time why they come to me as well. They feel stuck and they want to get out of that feeling. So there's a couple of things that people can do to break through that. The first thing is basically get to know yourself. Right? You have to be aware of who you are. What are your values, your personality, your strengths? What motivates you now in life? What sabotages you in life? What are the stories you tell yourself? What are the roles you take up in life that are really not fitting you anymore? What's your purpose in life? Purpose is something you build, you don't find that. So all of these things, they add up to really knowing yourself and who you are in this world. Um, Also, what you can do is challenge. I've just touched upon the stories that you tell yourself. Challenge those stories as well, right? Because the biggest obstacle that people have towards taking meaningful steps again in life, that's not external. It's the limiting beliefs that we hold, right, about ourselves. That's what stops us. So you have to break through that. Um, some other advice, I guess, that I can give people to build a meaningful, purposeful life again is to find a supportive community. Friends have never been as important as they are in midlife. You need to surround yourself with people who encourage you, um, who will support you, who will not tear you down, who will not laugh at you when you want to make a change in your life or if you want to grow in a certain direction. They need to carry you along because you will come upon difficulties, and they need to help, support you through that rather than going, well, of course you can't do that. I told you so, the negative impact. So, I guess that's basically the very basic things that I would tell people.
I really love the strategies that you mentioned, but I have one follow-up question, or rather curiosity to ask is you said that you should have some support system around you. Definitely, some people are really blessed to have access to that community or support system. For someone who cannot find any support system, how do they make sure that they motivate themselves so that they can uplift and they do not depend on external factors? This is an exception that I wanted to know.
Yeah, sure. That comes down again to self-awareness. It's in the on the rare occasion that people really can't find any support whatsoever. You need to be able to motivate yourself,
Mhm.
but to know that means you need to know what motivates you, what drives you. Then it's the only way to keep going. Again, to do the work around that,
Mhm.
and to figure out what is driving you.
That's such a helpful perspective. And I think a lot of people reach this phase feeling like certain doors have been closed. But hearing you talk about it as a chance to get clearer on what really matters, and that is actually taking action, that's really encouraging. Now, midlife often comes with big questions about purpose, identity, and what truly matters. I would love to know, in your work, how have you seen people transform when they start embracing these deeper questions?
Oh God, in so many different ways. That's what I find the most rewarding part of the work that I do, is seeing at some point people realize again that, as you said, the doors aren't closed to them
Mm-hmm.
and they can have a goal in life that excites them. um, they can have a purpose in life that they feel inside themselves that matters to them. They have they realize again what their values are, the way they stand in their lives. Like, that's your values, right? What really matters to them.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing them discover all of that and then acting upon it, because that's absolutely important, because it's one thing to learn about yourself and your path. It's another thing to actually walk the path and bring a future to life, by acting upon the plan that you have made. Um, I've seen people move continents to go and live and work, volunteer in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That was absolutely amazing to see as well. Um, I've seen people turn around their lives, their health as well. Um, I've seen people building businesses. Um, yeah, I find it absolutely fascinating what people can do, at a time when society has virtually written them off for being too old, the myth, what people can still achieve despite everything. I find that amazing. It's just, there's such strength in humanity. I always find that super encouraging.
That's such lovely perspective that you shared. So if I may ask you, the transformation that you spoke about, if you could give one word to it, when you see people transforming their lives, when you see that when society has written them off, and they make conscious decision to change their life, what's one word that comes to your mind? I know it could be amazing, it could be transformative, but what's the magical word that you have for such transformation?
Growth. It's always
Lovely.
growth.
Mhm.
There's transformation in it, of course, but you see people grow in who they are, how they hold themselves, how they stand in their lives and in society.
Mhm.
I find that amazing. People learning, proving, feeling driven again. I love seeing that.
And I love it when you say that the internal shifts that you described can change everything about someone, how they want to live and how they want to show up in the world. Uh, Now I agree that transformation is rarely easy. And what are some of the biggest challenges people face when they begin to embrace midlife fully? I know you spoke about how they make the transformation, but I strongly believe that transformation does take efforts, does take conscious efforts and time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, oh, absolutely. It does take time, and it's never really easy. I make it sound like because the end results are always amazing, but it's a lot of hard work to
Hmm.
get there. Um, and I mean, the issues that people face is like, some of them feel the whole stigma and the myths of midlife really deeply, and they believe in that for a long time. um, or there's just the lack the self confidence to actually make things happen at the pace that they want to make things happen. Um, they feel very uncertain about their path. They really don't know what they want, because I do ask them to set a goal. It doesn't matter how big or how small, but some people are literally incapable of setting a single goal for their life. Or they feel very overwhelmed because midlife comes with a lot of changes, like in your work life, in your personal life, in your inner world, a lot of changes. So they feel overwhelmed by the amount of them.
Hmm.
They feel they don't have the time to spend on themselves because, they're in certain roles that demand their time. They're afraid of being judged by others. Um, they find comfort in the routines and the habits that they already have, and then they find it very difficult to break through that. So all of those are reasons why people find it difficult to transform, and all of those can be solved.
You also, I love it how you made it very simple. I want to know one more thing. You spoke about confidence, and I strongly believe that uh, some people are blessed with confidence, while some really have to work on it. In your work, how do you work with people who may not be confident at that stage? What strategy that you use to instill that confidence in them, where they can start believing in themselves and in their path?
The confidence sits within you, right? It's not something that I can create for someone. However, that being said, what you can do is work on getting people to feel more resilient. That I can do, because confidence and resilience often go hand in hand. Once you see
Mm-hmm.
that, you can deal with challenges, you feel more confident by itself. It's a mindset shift, if you like. Also, as part of that, it's like helping people to build more of a growth mindset, helping them reframe how they see change and their ability to handle it, because that all goes hand in hand with self-confidence, being optimistic about life rather than, maybe a little bit more pessimistic, um, feeling curious about life again and about what's happening in the world around you. All of those elements, that all sits in it. That's all your mindset. Um, we work on those rather than purely on self-confidence. Of course, I do set tasks as well. If I notice that someone is really struggling, I give them certain tasks to, for instance, speak to a stranger in the supermarket for like 2 minutes, just to get them to come out of their shell. Super basic element, super basic tasks. Um, just to show them that there's nothing to be afraid of. Because of course, these people, if you lack the self-confidence, you're often very scared of change as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one period in life where change is just a daily occurrence, it's midlife.
Yeah. While you say that it is basic tasks that you mentioned, I think it's very creative for someone to walk up to a stranger and talk to them. Uh, I would love to know, were there any, breakdown moments with your people that you work with? Anything that you would like to share?
Maybe something that relates to a lot of people. It's about work. I worked with a man in his mid 50s recently who had been made redundant. He had worked at that company for 25 years. He didn't even have a resume because he never saw this coming. He was made redundant, big global company, and you could see it had literally shattered him. And he did not know how to, take the pieces of his life and put them back together. So we did a lot of work around values and building purpose in life again. Did a lot of exercises around that as well, because what he realized was not just did he not really know himself anymore,
Mm-hmm.
he knew his strengths, his work strengths professionally. He knew that, but he did not really know that much about his personal traits. He didn't know anything at all about his personal values. He didn't know what was driving him. He had never thought about having a purpose in life. He thought that that was all very, airy fairy, new age stuff. Um, but the moment, because I could see it click for him, the whole it does matter. And actually, if I have my values and I can have a purpose in life again, things will work out for me. Once that clicked in his head, he found it so much easier to set a goal for himself, because he then went like, now I see it. Actually, my life needs to be aligned with who I am. That will make me a lot more satisfied in life. I will show that to other people as well. I will feel better in my own skin. I can set goals. In this case, it was work goals. I can actually, with all the experience that I've got, I can probably choose where I want to work. I'm going to pick a company based on its culture, and I'm going to make sure that it's aligned with who I am. That's going to be the key thing that I'm going to be choosing who to work with from now on. So that was just such a powerful moment when he went, yes, I see it now.
I'm pretty sure people might see it as challenge, but for you it's very empowering to empower people to see their worth and look forward in their life. So thank you so much for sharing that moment. Now when people, as we spoke about, that they embrace midlife, when they are embracing midlife with openness and purpose, how do you see that this transformation ripples out into their relationship?
The first of all, what I need to maybe be clear about, I'm not a relationship coach, not even in midlife. It's an area that I think there's other strengths that I have. Relationship coaching is um, not something that I do much. I always work on a one-on-one basis as well. But what I can say is what I hear, what people tell me anecdotally is that once they actually realize what their personal values are, once they realize what purpose they want to build in their life, and they start bringing that into their relationship, it becomes very clear very quickly whether the relationship is still what they need in their life. That goes with a partner, that goes with friends, it goes with in all directions, the whole network around you. And sometimes the partner and, my clients, they work out together, and they go together on a journey. It actually refreshes their relationship. They learn to communicate better. They learn to talk about, feelings and values. Sometimes people have realized that, it's actually sabotaging, the relationship is actually sabotaging their own personal progress in life. That didn't always have a happy ending, not just partners, but also sometimes friends. In midlife, I talked about, the need to have the right people around you in midlife. It is super important, to have good friends around you. You don't need many of them, but you do need the ones that are going to matter in your life, that will lift you up. And some
That's a
people
very
have therefore stopped, cut down on friendships.
Well, that's very powerful point that, it's not necessary that you should have many friends. You should have at least one or two who would really show up for you, who would uplift you. So our listeners, if they are watching and listening, this is a message that at that stage, it's really important that you have people who really uplift you. So thanks for sharing that. Many say that midlife is the time to rediscover purpose. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, oh, absolutely. Um, it's it's strongly intertwined with the roles that people have had in their lives, right? In midlife, people start asking themselves, like, who am I really beyond the partner, the parent, the colleague, the boss, the friend? Who am I? Have I really lived for myself? So once I start learning about themselves and they start thinking about, okay, I need to have like a purpose in life. I need to know, part of that hangs together with legacy as well. I need to know that I'm doing something good in my life, something important in my life, and people go looking for that in midlife again. Because when you're younger, you have your kids. That's what you're doing in life, right? You're a parent. It's very important. You raise them well, or you have, or you have your job. You're ambitious, or you want to be a good leader, a good boss, a good coworker, whatever it is. That's part of purpose as well. But in midlife, you start to realize that, for instance, work-wise, success, or even in life, success is not defined in the same way anymore. All the external factors, money, title, whatever it is, it starts to matter a little bit less. What you're actually looking for is something that's more towards being significant. And significance and purpose are very much aligned as well, of course. You want to be significant to other people, whether that's in your immediate circle or wider in society. It doesn't really matter. But that's definitely a shift that you notice in midlife as well. So it all hangs together with your original question, like, finding purpose, building purpose in midlife really matters to people.
And I think a lot of people feel lost because they expect to have all the answers right away. And hearing that it's absolutely okay to take things one step at a time and allowing themselves to, explore, I feel that feeling is quite freeing. Um, how can people find or build supportive communities? I know we spoke about it, but how do they find communities that understand the challenges and the beauty of midlife?
It doesn't have to be a community of people who understand the difficulties or the challenges of midlife. I always say, like, find people who are not clones of yourself, right? Yes, of course, you can have friends who are also in midlife because they will understand what you're going through, and you can tap them to talk about the difficulties that you're facing, or, they will get it. But on the other hand, I always say, look for intergenerational friendships as well. Older people, because they will have wisdom to share. Younger people, because they will give you a completely new and potentially creative perspective on things. You can learn from them as well. You might be able to mentor them in some way, but they will mentor you as well. And that is actually being able to learn both from older people and younger people. It's a strength in midlife again, eh? With all the life experience that you have by this stage, you know that there is a lot, you know how much there is that you don't know, right? When you're young, you don't know that. But midlife, you know. So trying to learn as much as possible again, and finding friends in your circle to help you with that. That's really important.
So what I understand is it should be a blend of having community or set of people around you who are maybe a clone of you, at the same time someone who is older because they have seen life more than you. They have had more experiences. They have done a lot more mistakes, and you can learn from them. So
Yes,
I
indeed.
really love this analogy. Thanks for that. What message or wisdom do you wish more people understood about midlife?
Ooh. I think the main thing is something that I have mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, that midlife is not a crisis. That is something that we as a society need to leave behind us, that association with midlife crisis.
Hmm.
Um, that is something that I have to fight against every single day. Um, the cliches as well. And just the knowledge that midlife is a time of strength, of transformation, of um, who you were always meant to become. This is your time. This is when you also have the time, like more time if the kids are a little bit older, all of that. So this is it, and make the most of it. Grab the opportunities and make the change.
I think it's high time. It should be rephrased as, instead of midlife crisis, it should be midlife growth, midlife transformation. I
Yes.
strongly believe in that.
Yes.
Um, so now we have had quite a few serious conversation, and I'm pretty sure our audience definitely loves this interaction. How about bringing in some fun element? Let me sprinkle some fun into our conversation, and I have got some light-hearted questions coming your way that might just reveal your midlife superpower.
Okay.
Are you up for it?
Yes, I don't know what to expect, but okay.
Okay. What's one quickie habit or guilty pleasure you think people secretly enjoy more in midlife?
My immediate thought is chocolate, but that's probably not something I should say. I think guilty. Oh, I don't know if it's a guilty. It sounds so boring when I say that. Being able to enjoy life
Mm-hmm.
without feeling guilty at all.
Okay. Well, that's a peak midlife joy right there. And it's like the older we get, the less we pretend.
Yes.
Um, yeah. Now, next thing I would want you to shed some light is, if you could give midlife a new slogan or tagline, what would it be? And make sure it is very catchy and creative.
Not the end, just the beginning.
I love it. And if I was asked, I would definitely, want to have it printed on my t shirt or the coffee mug that you mentioned just now. Okay, what's one thing you wish people would stop saying about midlife, but secretly you think it's kind of true in a funny way?
That they should not get a tattoo. I know people always joke about a tattoo, and I always
Mhm.
think, why not? If they want that, I don't, I don't see the problem with it. Not that I don't have any tattoos, to be clear, but I always think, when you see people with like a full sleeve tattoo and they're like, 50, and you see that it's been done recently. I know a lot of people then go like, oh God, midlife crisis, clearly. And I think, if they like it must have hurt a lot to get that far.
Yeah.
Fine with
And
me.
I would say midlife really is one big plot twist. If you had a magic wand to instantly solve one midlife challenge, it could be big, small, minute, anything. What would you zap away?
Ooh. The wrinkles. I wouldn't mind getting rid of the wrinkles, Rui.
And
Yeah.
if you say wrinkles, I would definitely say we should have this wand on subscription basis.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. It's like I find it really difficult, right? Because on the one hand, I think it doesn't matter. Wrinkles is just a sign that you're getting older, but that's okay because, my whole body's getting older. On the other hand, I think if I could just get rid of them a little bit, I wouldn't mind.
Okay, one last question on the funny note. What's the funny piece of advice someone gave you about midlife that you secretly love it or laugh about it now? You got to be quick.
Oh, um, actually, it wasn't funny as in haha funny,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the big catalyst that got me to start Midlife Crossroads Academy. And that was an HR manager who told me that I was too old to hire. I was 44. It's not haha funny, but when I look at it now, I think, I did show you, didn't I? I'm not too old.
I would say midlife advice really does have its own brand of humor.
Mm.
I think you were quite quick with your answers and super creative too. And I love how you easily came up with all those questions while I put you on spot. Um, as we wrap up today, what's one piece of advice or encouragement you would like to leave our listeners with?
Keep growing, keep learning, and know that you can still do what you want to achieve in life.
Thank you so much. I definitely see it as a reassuring message to end on, and I'm sure it will give a lot of people the hope and confidence they need to face midlife with fresh perspective and open mind. Tamara, thank you so much for sharing your experience and all the great wisdom about how beautiful midlife can be. This has been such an inspiring and refreshing chat in a long time. And I'm sure everyone listening is definitely going to walk away with a fresh new take on this stage of life. As you say, midlife is not crisis. It's about transformation. It's about growth. So thank you so much for your time and sharing your thoughts with us.
You're welcome, Rui. Thank you again for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. This was fun. Thank you.
I loved every bit of this conversation, and thanks for everyone tuning in today. And don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone who needs a little midlife magic. And also feel free to drop me a message at let's align podcast at gmail.com. If there is a topic that you would like me to cover in the upcoming episodes, I would love to hear your ideas. I'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, as Tamara says, keep embracing every chapter with an open heart. See you all. Bye bye.